If we could gather our speakers.
Do I get a star? I'm here.
She's just doing this to annoy me.
Shoot.
Yeah, why don't you sit down?
I'm going to.
All righty.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Janine, could you get the doors, please? Thank you. Welcome to our Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm David Schaeffer. I serve as stewardship chair for this growing, journeying community. We welcome all of you to our service, especially those of you who are searching for a spiritual home. Many of us once were also, seeking for something larger than ourselves to which we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time here with us or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically. That was adapted from a piece by Erica Hewitt, UUA's Minister of Worship Arts. As always, a few reminders. First, please silence your devices. I'm watching everybody reaching for theirs. Thank you. Turns out that I figured out a way to automatically have my phone go to silent, or go to buzz actually, when I walk in the building, based on the fact that it connects to the Wi-Fi. If you'd like help in doing that with your device, see me afterwards. And or see Jake, one of us will help you.
I can sign up for that.
Yeah, as always, I might add. Okay, so talk to me if you're interested in that particular process. Second, a reminder that all that we do here on Sunday mornings is broadcast live on YouTube and recorded for posterity. If you do not wish to be an internet star, do not put yourself on camera, which means don't come up here and talk, because you will be. Thirdly, RE classes, for those of you who have children in RE, will be outside during good weather at the conclusion of the service. And you can pick up your children between 11:35 and 11:45. Please pick them up. The chalice lighting is with Bobbi. And welcome, Don. Good to see you. Sorry.
This is an Erica Hewitt Sunday because I adapted our chalice lighting from her words. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. Living from the heart with courage is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer. To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and the heart to live as fully as possible. I make the following statement of commitment. With full heart, I affirm my relationships with this congregation. I recognize our agency and our connective power. I accept my responsibility to be bold and courageous. I light this chalice, symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be, as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls. If you would join with me in this commitment, as well as this work, affirm by responding at this time with, I will.
I will. And Aaron will present the story for all ages.
Testing, testing.
Yep.
Awesome. Friends, come and join me here. Girls, if you want to come up, you can. Pictures will also be up on the screen, just in case. Our story for all ages today is one of my favorite stories. It is What Was I Scared Of by Dr. Seuss. You know Dr. Seuss? That's good. Well, I was walking in the night and I saw nothing scary, for I have never been afraid of anything, not very. Then I was deep within the woods when suddenly I spied them. I saw a pair of pale green pants with nobody inside them. I wasn't scared, but yet I stopped. What could those pants be there for? What could a pair of pants at night be standing in the air for? And then they moved. Those empty pants. They kind of started jumping. And then my heart, I must admit, it kind of started thumping. So I got out. I got out fast as I could go, sir. I wasn't scared, but pants like that, I did not care for. No, sir. After that, a week went by. Then one dark night in Greenwich, I had to do an errand there and fetch some Greenwich spinach. Well, I had fetched the spinach. I was starting back through town when those pants raced round a corner and they almost knocked me down. I lost my Greenwich spinach, but I didn't even care. I ran for home. Believe me, I had really had a scare. Now, bicycles were never made for pale green pants to ride them, especially spooky pale green pants with nobody inside them. And the next night, I was fishing for doubt trout on River River when those pants came rowing toward me. Well, I started in to shiver, and by now I was so frightened that I'll tell you, but I hate to, I screamed and rode away and lost my hook and line and bait too. I ran and found a brickle bush. I hid myself away. I got brickles in my britches, but I stayed there anyway. I stayed all night, the next night too. I'd be there still, no doubt, but I had to do an errand, so the next night I went out. I had to do an errand, had to pick a peck of snide in a dark and gloomy snide field that was almost 9 miles wide. I said, I do not fear those pants with nobody inside them. I said and said and said those words. I said them, but I lied them. Then I reached inside a snide bush, and the next thing that I knew, I felt my hand touch someone, and I bet that you know who. The pants. And there I was, caught in the snide, and in that dreadful place, those spooky, empty pants and I were standing face to face. I yelled for help. I screamed. I shrieked. I howled. I yowled. I cried. Oh, save me from these pale green pants with nobody inside. But then a strange thing happened. Why, those pants began to cry. Those pants began to tremble. They were just as scared as I. I never heard such whimpering, and I began to see that I was just as strange to them as they were strange to me. I put my arm around their waist and sat right down beside them. I calmed them down. Poor empty pants with nobody inside them. And now we meet quite often, those empty pants and I, and we never shake or tremble. We both smile and we say, hi. I don't know. Let's discuss this in class. I don't know. Those are really good questions to discuss.
They're supposed to make no sense. The rhymes are good, but they make no sense.
All right,
So incoherent.
but it's a great book, and that's just the fun of Dr. Seuss, yes. All right, Neve, will you get the RE lantern? Yes, up here. And we shall follow Neve. Ready?
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you. Everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Well, it's good to see a few people are left. Well, we lost our banana, unfortunately. Oh well. Okay, joys and concerns. We have a few of these today. First, birthdays, and I don't see her here, but Lou Hoover was on Friday. I'm going back a couple of days. 84? Yep. Wow. This woman is amazing. The things that she does at 84. May I be as active as she is. Lavetta Rolfs is October 25th. And Forrest Evans is on the 27th. Concerns. First, I have one. Seems like we see more and more masks, which is absolutely fine. But it brings to mind that a couple of months ago, it was like all of us knew somebody who had COVID. Okay, and now it's starting again. I got a phone call or a text from my daughter in Atlanta who has double pneumonia. She's got the flu, and everyone she knows has the flu in Atlanta. Considering the fact that we are a very mobile country, I wouldn't be surprised to see it here. Please go get your flu shot, ASAP. Okay, Cheryl Franklin requests some positivity about her parents' continuing battles with her father's Alzheimer's and her mom's terminal cancer. She's needing strength to continue to be a good caregiver for them, and it's starting to get difficult. You might reach out to her. Her contact information is in the directory. That's Cheryl Franklin. Alan Foster has been struck with COVID. So he's avoiding contact with everyone. He's on the mend, but still coughing and feverish, which is not good. Last but certainly not least, Mindy Bacchus needs a ride to KU Med this Thursday morning at 8:30. If you can help, please see Walt Racker. There you are, Walt, for details. Thank you. Any other concerns? Nope. Then I'll go on with the, you have a, come on up. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Sorry, I'm Susanna Emilio. I just want to ask for very targeted thoughts for my husband. He is in an important program for the next 6 weeks. It's a rehab program encompassing a lot. But unfortunately, his brother is also passing away from very high-level cancer, and they don't know how much time he has. So he's very conflicted. He obviously is going to go see his brother. He obviously wants to stay in this rehab as long as possible. So he's going to be talking to a social worker tomorrow and just needs that energy, that wisdom. So his name is Richard.
Thank you, Susanna. Give it a shot, kiddo.
My name is Zoe Burton, and my mother was Andrea Burton. I would also like some thoughts, whatever you guys do for my family. This month, my dad's girlfriend passed away from a very unfortunate situation, and it is also my mom's death date on the 27th of this month. So we would all really appreciate whatever you guys could give for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Okay, announcements. 11:45 today, the Program Planning Committee will meet in the library. And looking ahead a week, Saturday is the haunted house. The public's welcome. If you know, invite your neighbors and their kids. K through 5th grade is where it's targeted. So, for other information, like other meetings and stuff that occur this week, please see the board's bulletin board, which is out in the gathering space. Okay? One more thing. Oh, yeah, there's a couple more. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Dennis Bosley. I've got 7 vote no signs in the lobby, and if we run out, I got a couple more in my trunk.
Did you have something? Oh, Jake?
So, David, you asked if anybody had any other concerns, but you never asked if anybody had any other joys.
I think I did. No, I haven't finished those yet.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
doing
go
an
ahead. Yeah, I did. Go ahead.
So I'm going to share a joy from this past week.
Please.
Miss Addie Pearl and I went to the pumpkin patch for the first time, and she had the best of time.
Where are the pictures?
They're online.
All right.
She also got her first professional photos done at school,
I saw
and she
that.
dressed up like Elsa. We went over to her godmother's house, and she got Elsa hair done and everything. It was great.
And if you haven't seen her today, she's flitting around like a ladybug with the wings and everything. That's my granddaughter. Okay.
So haunted house this coming Saturday, 5 to 9, I believe. Jean Ryan, Laura Yockers are doing this along with a lot of volunteers. We need more cakes for the cakewalk and plants, real or artificial. There's a sign-up sheet out in the lobby, so if you can help out, that'd be great.
Waiting for the plant confusion to die down over here.
I think I've lost control of the crowd.
I think you have. Hello, everybody. We here at this congregation strive to be a welcoming congregation. As such, we are ever looking for more ways to make people feel welcome within these halls. But we are also a congregation that values the democratic process, and we think that any decisions we should hear from anyone that those decisions affect. As such, the board is recommending that we make changes to the bathrooms to make them unisex in order to make trans individuals feel more welcome here. But before we do that and before we make a final decision, we would like to have 2 focus group meetings. One next Sunday at noon, so that's October 30th at noon, and another one the following Wednesday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. All are welcome, all concerns will be heard, and we will discuss this as a group. Please join us if you wish to. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. One more thing. In your infinite wisdom, you all elected me to be stewardship chair for 22-23. What this means is that starting in January, you will be seeing a lot more of me. Hard to believe, eh? Up here and perhaps at your home. You can avoid all that by pledging early and generously. More on that in the coming months. I want to remind you that you all voted to hire a minister. And now we'll be greening the basket.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live.
Thank you so much. And now Vicki will introduce the program.
In 2016, Frederick Muir edited a book of essays from 20 UU leaders entitled Turning Point, Essays on a New Unitarian Universalism. I have to admit, this book sat on my bookshelf for several years, a nagging presence I have been able to ignore until Bobbi started addressing the issue of individualism here at UUFT, and I volunteered to assume responsibility for the third Sunday morning services. Building on this morning's program of the Trinity of errors identified by Muir, I plan a program featuring the Trinity of promises in January. I'm looking for volunteers to help. That's a scary look, isn't it? Back to today's presentation. Frederick Muir holds both a master's and doctorate in ministry. He served the UU Church of Annapolis for 34 years until his retirement. Under his leadership, the church grew from 3 staff members to 8 and hundreds of members. The church became known for its justice initiatives, starting with support for the LGBTQ population, marriage equality, and as a sanctuary church for refugees and immigrants. Muir addresses his concern over the future of Unitarian Universalism, the increase in the so-called nuns, those that identify as spiritual but not religious, which has sometimes been seen as a potential growth population for us. But it hasn't happened. By the way, all religions have faced difficulties this decade, with COVID taking its toll. Our neighbors are active in a large Methodist church, and they report its Sunday attendance has been halved. Lots of reasons for the decline, but Methodist churches across America are also splitting over the issue of LGBTQ rights. With early support for gay rights, this generally hasn't been a problem for Unitarian Universalism and UUFT, but our churches and fellowships are still seeing declines. Muir wonders if there is a canary in the coal mine for us to consider in the decline of British Unitarian churches. We share considerable attributes with them, and they also have significant resources to support a thriving religious faith. However, with a membership of less than 4,000 in the entire country, they have closed 50% of the churches in the last 80 years, and currently the average congregation has 15 members. It is on the downward slide of the tipping point. Is this our future? I hope not. I've been a UU for 46 years, 40 here at UUFT, and I still believe in this faith. And as long as I live in Topeka, I want to be involved in a thriving, vital UU congregation that embodies the principles and reflects the messages of our windows to do justice, love mercy, and the last one is walk humbly with thy God. In proud UU tradition, it's up to you to define what that last word means for you. What I hope to not see here is what I observed last week in Montgomery, Alabama. The UU Fellowship there, founded in 1967, is selling its location. After significant decline in membership, they were faced with selling the building or going without ministerial leadership. They picked the minister and will be renting space across the town. If faced with the same dilemma, what would have been our decision? Muir contends this trinity of errors is grounded in our historic past and is now holding us back. There's a need to address them before a needed paradigm shift. This morning, Bobbi will flesh out the concern with individualism. I will take on exceptionalism, and Bob will address the allergy to authority and power.
Individualism. Frederick Muir writes, "It's not easy being a Unitarian Universalist. We offer no simple salvation, no set of religious rules that promise either happiness or wholeness. We offer only ourselves with all our shortcomings and the great liberal religious tradition in which we stand. Our beloved UU heritage has reached a turning point, as Vicki said, a place of change with profound consequences that will determine whether there will be another generation of religious liberals that go by our name. A perfect storm is in progress and is pushing us to the tipping point. Will we lose control of our future? Events are forcing us to address this and other questions. We are becoming a majority-minority nation, and we will reach that reality in 2043. It is projected that by 2060, minorities will constitute 57% of the U.S. population. Many, especially young adults, have no religious affiliation. UU has been downsizing at an alarming rate. We need to step back and picture a new vision of our faith, grounded in the reality of what is and what possibly will be. In 1822, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "I trust that there is not a young man now living in the U.S. who will not die a Unitarian." Diana Eck, a religious scholar, said in 2007 of UU, "You are, in my estimation, the church of the new millennium." They and others over time have stated not that we are, but what we can be, the religion of the future. To fulfill that potential, we must create a significant change. Fundamental to our survival is recognizing that our way of faith has been supported and nurtured by the Trinity of errors. Unitarian Universalism is losing its vitality and relevance. The Trinity narrative has come to shape our story. UUs are still identified by our North American look. We have been called the church of the educated and the successful. Apple exploited the theme of individualism in a commercial that goes like this. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. They push the human race forward. Individualism shaped not only the American culture, but also Unitarian Universalism. We as a nation and as a religious community went from individuality to individualism. Individualism is not sustaining. It does not serve the greater good, but it is a principle to which we seem to have committed ourselves. The theology of individualism does not encourage people to live and work together. to create and to support institutions that serve the common aspirations and the beloved principles. When used as an expression of individualism rather than an expression of individuality, the principles come dangerously close to sounding like an ideology or creed turned theology and spirituality. How can we affirm our principles and yet fail to accomplish the simplest yet most difficult of tasks, the task of creating a community where everyone can come and be who they are? Do we love our individuality so much that we cannot make room to acknowledge someone else's individuality? Are we unwilling to give up even one piece of our individuality to create a community where all feel truly welcome? The dominant culture of white America prevails. True community does not happen until everyone is willing to give up some of their identity as an individual to take on the identity of the group. Until this happens, we are merely a group of people sharing a common space. We must move individualism from the center of our focus to embrace the concept of shared community. Everyone gives up a little, but we gain a lot. In this way, we create a true community where we all supported in living our lives fully because we feel safe and known at a deep level in our community. And we are committed to all members of our community thriving. Don't we want our fellowship to be a place where individuals feel safe to question belief, risk speaking out and exploring who they are? Don't we want those individuals to be safe and encouraged in ways they thought impossible or even unimaginable in the context of their former faith? Both new members and members of long-standing want sanctuary, a religious community where they can be welcome and at ease, pursuing a life of exploration, discovering, affirming, celebrating, and at times grieving. A community. Living our principles is a commitment to covenant, creating and sustaining a community by promising to one another our mutual trust and support. It takes a lot of effort on the part of the members, all members. If individualism led us to where we are, then covenant can shape the beloved community where promise of individuality and justice inspire, empower, broaden, and deepen all. Our principles are the point of common reference. The first principle comes from our universalist heritage, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The seventh principle comes from our Unitarian heritage, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Both are theological statements about what we believe. Our shared vision is found in the second, third, fifth, and sixth principles. Our shared journey is described in the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our principles shape an environment that encourages risk-taking, authenticity, and vulnerability on the part of its members while supporting honest religious exploration. Creating just, safe congregations is essential to the UU vision of the interdependent web. Without a strong congregational structure of the interdependent web of relationships, we cannot expect to achieve renewal. And when the inevitable upheaval occurs, at those times when a community must focus on forgiveness and the healing of relationships, we need the commitment to shared purpose and values, where the individual is affirmed but not worshiped. The phrase beloved community was authored by Josiah Royce. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. completed his doctoral work at the Boston University School of Theology, where Josiah Royce was a philosopher and the founder of American idealism. King interpreted beloved community to mean there is no graded scale of essential worth. There is no divine right of one race which differs from the divine right of another. Every human being has etched in his personality the indelible stamp of his creator. Reverend Shirley Strong elaborated on King's vision to say, I understand the term beloved community to mean an inclusive, interrelated society based on love, compassion, responsibility, shared power, and respect for all people. This society can transform radically individuals and can restructure institutions, which is to say, beloved community is shaped by what we know and feel as justice. When we ascribe meanings of beloved community tie in so remarkably with our principles, why are we so reluctant to use the phrase? Is it because the origins of beloved community language? Is it the tie to the Black Civil Rights Movement of Martin Luther King Jr.? When I read the quote from Reverend Strong, it describes what I strive to make real, functional, and powerful in the restructuring of UUFT. I do not aspire to go back to the way we were in this religion or in this community to a previous time or place, except in the sense that I believe the aspirations of beloved community were in the hearts and minds of the individuals who purchased the small rancher on 21st Street as a home for their community. I think they hope to create an inclusive, interrelated society based on love, compassion, responsibility, shared power, and a respect for all people, places, and things. A society that radically transforms individuals and restructures institutions. And I imagine that they hope that UUFT would grow and change as they work toward their founding goals. We have grown, and we have changed. When we marched in the name of civil rights, we challenged the nation by witnessing Dr. King's dream of a beloved community. As he defined it, those ideas have much in common with our principles. So why are we so averse to naming what we wish to create, the beloved community? I see that we need to make the beloved community here so that we become a place of change with profound consequences that will determine whether there is another generation of religious liberals who go by our name. Vicki?
I have the task of addressing exceptionalism. I have been both repulsed by and have perpetrated the exceptionalism of Unitarian Universalism. As Muir states, as a patriarch of American transcendentalism, Ralph Waldo Emerson contributed to shaping 20th century ideology and the story Americans tell about ourselves. That story is about American uniqueness and individualism. And given our parallel development with the nation, our proclivity to exceptionalism is no surprise. Muir continues, the UU version of exceptionalism seems to imply our religion is uniquely virtuous, uniquely powerful, uniquely designed to accomplish great things, etc., etc. This is what I experienced on my first visit to a UU congregation. Briefly living in Lincoln, Nebraska, we attended the Sunday service and heard from the pulpit by the lay leaders a declaration of how Unitarian Universalism was so great, so intellectual and informed, free from the superstitions and the myths of other religions. We were repulsed and couldn't share the underlying presumption that we're the best. This repulses me because often we're not the best. Certainly not when it comes to working on justice issues. Yes, we are rightfully proud of the UUs that worked on civil rights when Dr. King put out the plea for clergy to come to Alabama. In 1965, proportionally more of our ministers showed up when you compare the size of our denomination. But numerically more religious people were present. Catholic nuns and priests, rabbis, Baptists, Methodists, Mennonites, etc. And in Topeka, our Methodist neighbors are usually at the same rallies as the UUs, plus they are active in housing issues and supporting the poor. I have been guilty of implying UU exceptionalism in more indirect ways. In his words, whether as a source of pride, personal and community, truth, embellishment, clarification, or strangely enough, welcoming, we hear the inflection of Unitarian Universalist exceptionalism from the pulpit, from newcomers' classes, from from Sunday greeters, and from those who are earnestly trying to explain our way of religion to the uninformed. I am guilty as charged. In mere summary, we must stay conscious of how we explain, defend, or share, lest we come across as elitist, insulting, degrading, isolating, and even humiliating to others, thereby serving as a barrier to sharing the good news of Unitarian Universalism. Now, Bob.
Good morning. I'm Bob McDaniel. I got to choose my portion of the topic this morning. At least Bobbi said it was a choice, and it's because she knows I have an enormous aversion to authority, and that aversion is based, from my perspective, on good and sufficient reasons. And I read a portion of the essay we've been discussing this morning, or a series of essays, and I will have to acknowledge that Frederick Muir, the author of those essays and the editor of others, made me think about things in which I have believed for a long time and whether the time has come for me to question that belief. So I bring you that perspective. His first chapter in the book we've been talking about is called "The iChurch Revealed," and I suppose that's iChurch in the context of iPad, for example. But what's new? What's technology? Where are we going? To quote Muir, "We have many reasons to be suspicious of hierarchical structures. Our collective histories have found us under the heel of systems of authority. Many of us left faith communities where no room is made for different views and disagreements." For some of you, that may speak to you. For others, it may be a moot point. If Frederick Muir is right, and I think he may be, I had hoped that he would at least suggest or give us some answers for the problem that he addresses. And Bobbi reassured me that later on in his book he does that, but I have not read that. Since Frederick Muir is not available this morning to defend his position, I will suggest some reasons for the Unitarian Universalist resistance to authority. The first of those is our fifth principle. We as a congregation have 8 principles. Number 5 is pretty specific. It says the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and society at large, okay? That seems to be pretty basic. We support the democratic process. The democratic process, by the way, does not do real well in authoritarian states or authoritarian groups. And I have always thought if we had to choose one, that I would not vote for authority. And so I'm having to look at that from a critical perspective. First of all, some information that you may not be aware of. And I don't care whether you've been coming here for 15 minutes or for 20 years, you still may not be aware of it. Within this fellowship, we do not hold contested elections for any open positions. A nominations committee talks with members and selects a candidate for each open position. The board then discusses those suggested candidates and generally rubber stamps the process, the names that were given by the committee. This has not always been the case. For a long time, every election was contested, and people stated strongly the position they believed in and tended to be irritated when other people did not agree. We used to have multiple candidates for all open positions. The role of president, for example, was often seen from very different perspectives, and people who strongly opposed each other's perspective would get up at this podium and discuss why their perspective was the correct one. I mention that to give you a sense of where we used to be compared to where we are now. The same thing, to a degree, has happened with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Over the last 20 years specifically, it has moved from an organization body which was based on the United States being divided up into districts, and the districts then elected a representative to the Unitarian Universalist Association, the governing board. Over time, that gradually changed, and it changed in such a way that essentially a very small group of people makes all the decisions at the UA level. There is no regional representation, and such basic decisions as who the candidates for president will be, and we elect a new president every 6 years, that decision is now made by a closed group and once again is rubber stamped. Now, you can disagree with what I'm saying. I would simply suggest that if you disagree or if you want to disagree, there's adequate literature out there to discuss the whole thing and the history of the whole thing. A national group of Unitarian Universalists, they call themselves the Fifth Principle Project, has attempted to chart a new course in keeping the democratic values of our fifth principle. Generally, they have failed. The removal of the democratic process within Unitarian Universalism is almost complete. If we choose not to use the democratic process at our local and national levels, how can we claim the democratic process is key to who we are as a denomination? If we can't have a vote on issues that impact us or people that make our decisions, what is democracy if not having votes on those issues and for those people? However, I think that Frederick Muir is right. We refuse to acknowledge and treat our allergies and authority and power, although the symptoms compromise a healthy a healthy future. As we have watched the democratic process disappear from both UFT and the UA, it is probably time for our fifth principle to also disappear. If we don't use it, if through our actions we don't believe it, then why on earth do we have it down as a statement that we say we believe in? I am more than slightly uncomfortable, however, with openly acknowledging that we have failed to use the democratic process within Unitarian Universalism. I was really uncomfortable with it. Over time, I've become less uncomfortable. But since we watched the democratic process disappear within both the UFT, I am more than slightly uncomfortable, however, with openly acknowledging we have failed to use the democratic process within Unitarian Universalism. And at the same time, we criticize vocally autocracies elsewhere within our system and in other countries that essentially have moved towards an autocracy. Now, here's the problem. We, as a denomination, we as a country are going exactly the same way that we have identified for years and years as problematic. After 4 years of Donald Trump and 2 years of Biden, we should be more fully aware that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I look forward to your comments during our congregational dialogue.
Talk about food for thought. I'm stuffed. A lot to think about. So, it's your turn. Would anyone like to come up and make comments on what you heard today? Janine, come on down.
I'm caught on my earrings. Okay. My name is Janine Silsby. Yeah, lots to think about and lots to mull over that will come at other times. And thank you for all those thoughts, because that's good food that takes a long time to digest. But a couple of things I thought of. On individualism, I am, as many of you may know, I'm retired, a psychotherapist, a clinical social worker. And the focus on the individual psychology as promoted or understood through Freudianism, that kind of thing, the individual psychological development and how that was used as part of therapy, that you figure out the person's. There was another thing going on a little bit later that was basically under the umbrella of feminist theology. Feminist theory. Because it was mostly women. This is interesting to me because the individualism, Freud, all those guys were guys, white guys. And I'm sorry, I know this feels like white guys get picked on, but you guys were in charge for a long time.
Too long.
Yeah, too long. Thank you. Amen. Hallelujah. But these different feminist theologies were mostly based around the psychology of community and relationships, how we are shaped by our relationships, and addressing those relationships in the therapeutic process, family systems. Now, some of the family systems were developed by men, so they were, it wasn't exclusively men and women. So I think that a focus on individualism has changed in many arenas besides religions and churches. The other thing, and boy, you gave us a whole lot more for me to chew on, Bob, but I noticed that of those three things, it was individualism, and she said it went from individuality to individualism, which is different. And the same with exceptionalism. They did not put an aversion to authoritarianism. It says authority. And I think there's a big difference because I don't think people are always an authority. That principle is an authority that we can go back to and say, based on the authority built into our principles, the democratic process, that's where we get the authority for using that in our religion. So, but I do wonder, I'm still thinking about this. There is a difference between how the United States does democracy and how England does. England has a representative, and more of a representative government, and I think that's what we have shifted to more. We elect representatives. Our board is elected by us, yes, unopposed. That's because in a place this size, it's hard to get more than one person at a time, having been on the nominating committee. And we can certainly impose more democracy, a democratic process in some of that, but some of it is simply representativism or representational, whatever that is. A republic versus a democracy. And really, America is more of a representative government. We elect people to represent us. And so I think that fits in there. I'm not sure how yet. I'm not done thinking about that. But I think that fits into the question about aversion to authority.
I'd like to comment on that. Sure, we have, according to our Constitution, a representative government. But we elect these representatives and they then represent themselves and their own self-interest rather than what we feel. And in Kansas, that is starkly out there, okay? Because take the abortion issue. The vast majority was pro, obviously, because, when we voted in that election. But yet, the guys who represent us, are representing us as being anti. Go figure. Anyone else? Oh, here we go.
This may sound trivial, but I'm a trucker, and the shiniest, best trucks on the road are Tribe Express, a Native American woman-owned company.
It's never trivial. Anyone else? Comments on the program? Don?
These are just personal comments as far as the three issues that was discussed this morning. Of exceptionalism, I think, is also tied as far as to our educational level. Of there are very few people that don't have a bachelor's degree or in many cases, master's degrees, and a few cases of PhDs. But I think that gives us a sense as far as of elitism in the fact that we're educated to think critically as far as about issues through that process. And the aversion to authority, and that's the primary reason that I even considered the Unitarian Church to begin with, because I was brought up as a Presbyterian, and I rebelled so strongly against my mother, who was really pushing Presbyterianism as far as through it, and now I'm probably the most religious of the 5 children.
Go figure.
And I used to come back almost as the Antichrist as far as to discuss as far as to our high school religious course.
So I'm kind of wondering whether this conversation is being held at the UUA also. Because without it being held at the UUA, we're lost, in my opinion. This is paramount. Anyone else before we do our closing? Nancy. Oops. You're next.
I'm Nancy Heitzig, and now I'm really depressed.
You're going to apologize?
Give that woman a hug.
So, couple of things. I have my personal beliefs, and I believe those beliefs because I think that they are correct. And that is how all of us function, right? The key is humbly needing to be open to the idea that you might be wrong.
Indeed. I agree.
I just want to say another thing. We're reading a book in our book discussion group called Origins, written by an anthropologist from the University of Kansas, and she celebrates the fact that probably 10 years or 20 years from now, everything she deeply believes in is going to be found to be wrong. And she says, so what? And maybe that's part of what we say here.
Yeah, like Bobbi just said, you need to be open to change.
I have something I'd like to share, Dave.
Come on up.
Not sure exactly where this fits in, but I was going through some of my files this morning, and I remembered the 5 jagged rocks that I was exposed to when Beth was in seminary in Denver. And this 5 jagged rocks, written by Reverend Mike Moran, who's the minister at First Unitarian Society of Denver, where Beth did her internship and was actually ordained. And then elaborated by Reverend Nancy Bowen, who is the former regional director for the Western District. So here are the 5 jagged rocks. 3 of these sit as big, huge banners in the sanctuary of First Unitarian Society. There is a unity that makes us one. All souls are sacred and worthy. Salvation is in this life. The courageous power of love will transform. Revelation is open, not closed. So this is just one version, but to me this is addressing what the last thing I said? The good news of Unitarian Universalism.
believe that good news thing has been used before. But those 5 rocks, were there 5? Yep. You can relate them to the principles, can't you? So, interesting. Anyone else? If not, I turn the program back to Bobbi.
In closing, looking to and belief in our principles as a guide provides an opportunity for every congregation to create a more vibrant and caring community. Now we journey from the community created by our practice toward fulfillment of these, our principles, into a world we would like to be a world of peace, liberty, and justice for all. May we help to make our wider community vibrant and caring by our presence and our work. Let us all strive to make UUFT our sanctuary and our beloved community. Unitarian Universalism has always been and will continue to be a work in progress. Let us make the commitment to do our part of the work. Go in peace until next we meet.